I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only wanted one time to see you laughing. I only want to see you laughing in the purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. I only want to see you bathing in the purple rain. I never wanted to be your weekend lover. Only wanted to be some kind of friend. Baby, I could never steal you from another. It's such a shame our friendship had to end. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. I only want to see you underneath the purple rain. I know times are changing. It's time we all reached out for something new. That means you too. Now you say you want a leader, but you can't seem to make up your mind. Think you better close it. Let me guide you to the purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. I only want to see you laughing in the purple rain.
I love that song. Our reading today is by Jamie Utt, an article called Intent versus Impact: Why Your Intentions Don't Really Matter. Imagine for a moment you're standing with your friends in a park enjoying a nice summer day. And you don't know me, but I walk up to you, I'm holding a Frisbee, and I wind up and I throw the disc right into your face. Understandably, you are indignant. And through a bloody nose, you use a few choice words to ask me what the hell I thought I was doing. And my response? Oh, I didn't mean to hit you. That was never my intent. I was simply trying to throw my frisbee to my friend over there. Visibly upset, you demand an apology. But I refuse. Or worse, I offer an apology that sounds like, well, I'm sorry your face got in the way of my frisbee. I never intended to hit you. Sound absurd? Sound infuriating enough to give me a well-deserved frisbee upside of my head? Yeah. So why is the same thing happening all the time when it comes to the intersection of our identities and oppressions or privileges? Intent versus impact. From Paula Deen to Alec Baldwin, your annoying, bigoted uncle friend, we hear it over and over again. I never meant any harm. It was never my intent. I'm not a racist. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not a sexist. I cannot tell you how often I've seen people attempt to deflect criticism about their oppressive language or actions by making the conversation about their intent. At what point does the intent conversation stop mattering so we can step back and look at the impact? After all, in the end, what does the intent of our action really matter if our actions have the impact of furthering the marginalization or oppression of those around us? In some ways, this is a simple lesson of relationships. So ends our reading from Jamie Ut for now. I'm going to segue into the sermon with a prayer. A prayer of good intention, author unknown or unwilling to claim it. Dear Lord, so far I've done all right. I haven't gossiped, haven't lost my temper, haven't been greedy or grumpy, nasty, selfish or overindulgent, and I'm really glad about that. But in a few minutes, God, I'm gonna get out of bed, and from then on, I'm gonna need a lot more help. Well, this is one way to start the day. Recognizing that there's a very good chance that at some point, we're not just not going to be our best selves. We may even do something we regret. There's a really good chance of that. And like Rabbi Zusha from our story a little earlier, all we can really hope for in our days is being our best selves. And recognize that we're actually going to fail. So what do we do with that? What I like about this prayer is not only that it's kind of cute and funny, and I hope it got your attention, but it is ultimately realistic about how the day might go. I like also that it suggests asking God for help. Now, I know that's not really our way. Here as UUs, we don't rely on divine intervention. And whether we believe in a God who hears our prayers or not, we tend to count on our own very human actions or reactions or inactions to make a difference. It's on us. However, we can still ask for help. I like the mantra, now don't laugh, I like the mantra, what would Jesus do? Or what would Buddha, or Mandela, or Dr. Bonnie Henry, or Grandma, or Parker Palmer, or Ted Lasso, or what would your best friend do? We can conjure up and channel all kinds of trusted authorities for guidance of our own conscience for just about anything. But ultimately, we are responsible. And it may just be all we can do at that moment. And we still won't get it right. But as long as you tried your best and didn't mean to hurt anyone, it's okay, right? Well, no. That's not actually how it works. It's not okay. I mentioned Ted Lasso as a source of possible wisdom. Anyone out there know who I mean? Oh, I've got a few raised hands here. Type in the chat if you're a Ted Lasso fan. I recently binge-watched the 2 seasons of this Apple series that was recommended by many friends. There's a 3rd season, and we're all on tenterhooks waiting for it to come out, right? Yeah. So it's about an American football college coach who goes to England to coach a premier football, read soccer, team. But it's not at all about sports. It's about leadership and lessons in vulnerability and accountability, humility and relationship. Ted Lasso is a coach. And in his coaching, he transforms all of the people around him by helping them to be their best selves, by believing in them, and teaching them to believe in themselves. So I find myself quite often asking, what would Ted Lasso do? And the response is always to be kind. I should listen to Ted more often some days. I know that. Ted is friendly and caring and generous and kind of silly and goofy, but that doesn't mean he's a pushover. He makes some difficult decisions and he stands his ground, and he's not always right, and he struggles too. But he models being responsible and being accountable. Accountability is owning your actions and acknowledging the impact that they have. It doesn't require us to be perfect, and it's actually quite the opposite. Ted's strength lies in his vulnerability, letting him show his flaws, which we all have, and try to hide. He shows his entire, whole, goofy, authentic self. And as Brené Brown explains, vulnerability is the birthplace for joy and creativity and authenticity and love. It's the root of relationship. Through vulnerability, we build empathy. We work through emotions and become more resilient and foster better connections and relationships with other people because they can accept and see who we truly are as we do ourselves. Accountability is owning your actions. Many of the Ted Lasso show's characters are faced with their shadow side. There's one particularly shadowy character, that Nate. Many of Ted Lasso's show characters do show these sides, these uglier parts of us, of who we are, who all of us are, all of these layers. They don't always reflect their best selves. But the characters, through learning, through reflection, through example, They reconcile with their arrogance and their anger and their resentment, and ultimately the pain that is causing all of that. But their actions, they realize their actions do not define who they are. And that is so important. Our actions do not define who we are. We are all more than our worst mistake. We can learn, we can grow, especially with good coaching. In one episode, a particularly charming young niece of one of the players stands up to a boy who had been bullying her in school. She goes to his door with cards that she'd prepared with her text printed out on the sheet because she didn't want to say it. She held up these cards and had the boy read them as she pulled them off one at a time. And she very carefully and clearly through this text tells him how what he had done made her feel. That's all. And a while later, he came back to her and apologized sincerely. And she forgave him, and they started over. It's not always that simple. Okay, it's almost never that simple. But it's a good model. It is a good example of expressing feelings and impact and asking others to be accountable and to being open to reconciliation and repair. And to do that, we have to be able to be vulnerable. My favorite Maya Angelou quote has always been, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." In recognizing the harm we have caused, taking responsibility moves us to accountability and then to reconciliation and healing. And if we don't move through these steps, we ourselves cannot heal. We cannot heal the fear and the hurt in our own hearts. Reconciliation is necessary for both those who have been harmed and for those who have caused it, whether intentionally or not. When I started thinking about this service theme a while ago, I kept hearing that Prince song in my head. His voice singing, "I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only want to see you laughing." I'm so grateful to Patrick for agreeing to share his beautiful rendition of it and for recognizing that our actions, our intentions, and our impacts don't always line up, and finding ways to still be in community. To me, these words by Prince are a plaintive cry, a lament, recognizing all of the unintended consequences, the heartbreaking consequences of the things that we do or say every day. And it doesn't even mean that what we did or said was necessarily wrong, or that the impact wasn't even what we were trying to do, but we didn't see it all the way through. Or sometimes we make the right decision and it impacts different people in different ways, and yet we still need to make a decision and accept all of the impact. Anyone who's ever spent time in any kind of relationship knows how this happens and how it feels. Life is messy. There are so many opportunities for learning. I was walking on cobblestones in Frankfurt, Germany, heading for lunch with some people after church, and it was a little bit hilly. I took the handles of a friend's wheelchair to push her up an incline. And she rounded on me and she just tore a strip off of me. And I was shocked. I was shocked at her anger. I was just trying to help. I hadn't understood that the wheelchair she was in was an extension of her body. I had just grabbed it without her consent. She explained to me how my action had taken away her power and her self-determination, her independence, and even her pride. I had acted from a place of privilege and maybe impatience at wanting to move a little faster. I acted without a thought to her feelings, the consequences of my actions. It wasn't my fault. It was my ignorance. But it still caused harm when I was trying to help. And that is what is so hard. When we identify ourselves as being good and inadvertently do harm, does that mean that we're bad? I was upset that she was angry at me. But it wasn't about me. It couldn't be about me. I had caused her pain, and she let me know. If I focused my misunderstood intentions rather than the impact on my friend, I would have done even more harm and probably irreparably broken our relationship. This wasn't about me. Returning to the reading by Jamie Ut, she writes, "We need to step back and listen when we're being told that the impact of our actions is out of step with our intents or our perceptions of self. For people with identity privilege, this is where listening becomes vitally important, for our privilege can often shield us from understanding the impact of our actions. So if someone ever tells you to check your privilege, what they may very well mean is to stop centering your experience and identity in the conversation by making this about your intentions, the intentions of your actions, and instead focus on their impact." She writes, "Focusing on the impact rather than the intention takes the person who said or did the hurtful thing out of the center and places the person who was hurt in the center. It ensures that the conversation is about how what they did hurts other people and further marginalizes or oppresses people. But it's important to understand the difference." Ut writes, "Just because you did something sexist doesn't mean you are sexist. Just because you said something racist, it doesn't mean you are racist. When your actions are called into question, it is important to recognize that that is all that's being called into question. Your actions, not your overall character. The impact of our actions is the furthering of oppression. If that's what it is, then that's all that matters. So we need to listen. We need to reflect and apologize and work to do better in the future. And not an "I'm sorry your face got in the way of my Frisbee" kind of apology. One with sincere empathy for the impacted person's experience. And from there we can spend time to reflect in hopes of gaining at least some understanding, however marginal, of that harmful impact. And we can do our best to move forward by acting more accountably, to becoming our better selves, to asking, what would Ted Lasso do? And yet not every fence can be mended. Some harms cannot be healed. My mom, Charlotte, she shared with me a story from her ministry that haunts her to this day of an unintended impact, and she's given me permission to share this with you. She was in Brooklyn preaching a sermon called, "Must We Deserve to Be Happy?" And the reading she had chosen was about a housemaid sitting at a breakfast table who, before eating, said, "I thank thee, God, for these victuals." And her employer said, "You don't have to thank God. You will always have food in this house." My mom was acting out the southern drawl and patois accent that was described in the reading for the maid. And I'm not going to do it, but I know you know what it sounds like. There was a young African-American couple who had come to visit the church that day. And they got up and they walked out, probably never to return. My mother's heart sank. Do you know how that feels? To this day, she shared this story with me last night. I feel it. To this day, she has not been able to forgive herself. She cannot forgive herself for the impact on this couple, on the congregation, on our entire denomination. The ripple effects of these kind of systemic racist oppressions that we continue unintentionally with our actions, our microaggressions, the choices we make every day, these have lasting impact. Does that mean my mom's racist? No. But it hurts. It hurts to think you are, or that someone else can believe that. But yes, what she did was racist. That action had an impact. It's one of those deep and shameful regrets that we carry around unless there's an opportunity for reconciliation and healing somehow. And in that case, there was not, because those people are never coming back into a Unitarian church. And we need them too. We need the diversity. We need to do better. We need to be our best selves. Not all learnings come with happy endings, and not all harm can be reconciled and healed, and maybe we should carry the heavy burdens of these lessons to remind us of who our better selves are. Like Rabbi Zusha, the self we want to be. Are you carrying a burden like this, an unintended harm? Have you learned and been changed by it? Yeah, and it still hurts. Another quote from Maya Angelou. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. May it ever be so. Amen.
The and member congregations of the Canadian Unitarian Council covenant to affirm and promote
la valeur et la dignité intrinsèque de chaque personne,
justicia, equidad y compasión en las relaciones humanas,
气力，努力于彼此接受及鼓励大家在精神方面的成长。
Freies und verantwortungsvolles Suchen nach dem Sinn des Lebens.
在我們眾人和整個社會中使用我哋良心嘅權力和民主程序。
The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
私たちがすべての生き物と共存する網の目の一部であることへの尊敬。
Individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and our institutions.